So I want to echo George's and Matt's thank you. I mean, it really is very, very important to have something like this. It does mean a lot to faculty. I also want to congratulate you on your 50th reunion. That's quite a milestone, right? Very, very impressive. And it's a great thing to come back to Lehigh after 50 years. And I know some of this came about as a result of a concert you had, the Kingston Trio concert, is that right? Yeah. And I remember when I was a kid, my dad listening to the Kingston Trio, and also had a... I actually remember one of the albums. It's still in my mind. And I also went to the concert you had a couple years ago where you brought back, I guess, the new Kingston Trio. My research is in the area of, applied pattern recognition, I guess is the best way to describe it. So it covers a number of different topics that are maybe more accessible. So one of the things I do involves bioinformatics, and bioinformatics is the overlap between computer science and biology. So a lot of what computer scientists do is collaborate with other colleagues, and there's some great colleagues here in the Department of Biological Sciences, and I get to work with them, which is really a lot of fun. They tolerate my lack of knowledge of biology, and I help them with the computer science side of it as well. So the best way to relate bioinformatics is you've heard of the Human Genome Project, and you maybe know some of the problems of the Human Genome Project. So I've had the chance to work with some folks here on topics in that particular area. I won't get into the technical details, but that's the kind of collaboration that really gets fostered when you've got a little bit of extra money that can allow you to do something that is a little non-traditional for you. I should say that a lot of my work is funded. I do have grants from the National Science Foundation and DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. But if you look at the way those grants typically work, you're promising to do something specific. And especially with respect to DARPA, they really want you to itemize everything you spend and justify it. You can't go off on sort of some sort of blue sky idea unless they've already vetted it and approved it and gone through a very long process. You may also have heard that the funding rates for grant proposals has really gotten to be incredibly competitive, and that might sound like a good thing, but it means even if you submit a great proposal, there's a very good chance it won't be funded, at least the first time. Funding rates for NSF are typically around the 10% range right now, so you can imagine the success rate where you go up and do something where you're only successful about 10% of the time. So as a result, you might have to go through multiple iterations before you finally get the money. And in many cases, you actually need to have demonstrated results before an agency like NSF or DARPA is willing to give you money. So you're asking for money basically for stuff you've already accomplished, and the question is, well, how do you accomplish that to begin with if you don't have money to begin with, right? So how do you bootstrap this? So the kinds of unrestricted money you get from something like the class of 1961 professorship is really, really critical for bootstrapping research that you need to get the grants from National Science Foundation and DARPA, places like that as well. Some of my other work falls in the area of pattern recognition, computer vision, applied areas of computer vision. So we're doing some work in collaborations with some colleagues at other institutions on, the best way to describe it is handwriting recognition, document analysis, extracting information intelligence from documents, Arabic handwriting recognition in particular. You can imagine who might be interested in that. So you can imagine, let's just say, going into an office or a cave and acquiring tens of thousands of pages of material. How do you actually sift through that when the number of trained linguists you've got, human linguists, is relatively small? We know the speed with which this information, if it's used quickly, could be incredibly valuable. In fact, it could be a lifesaver. I mean, maybe the best thing I can do to point out the value of unrestricted funds delivered directly to faculty. I mean, everyone loves it. The president loves it. The deans love unrestricted funds. Everyone loves it. But delivering it directly to the faculty is another area that I'm doing some work in, which is electronic voting systems. So you may be familiar with some of the controversy associated with electronic voting. Everything is moving to computers now, right? Your books are now computers. You probably have Kindle, right? Your communication now, your mail is computers. Your TV is computers. Everything is computers. And now voting is computerized as well. Depending on what state you live in, you probably use a different system. Some of these systems are better than others. And there's been a lot of controversy raised about some of them that they really, you use computers, you know all the bugs and flaws and vulnerabilities they have. And while you might be willing to tolerate that on your own personal machine, maybe not, the fact is to have them in voting systems is a very, very bad thing. Now, so I've actually become involved in electronic voting. I'm actually an expert witness in a lawsuit that's taking place in Pennsylvania. It turns out Pennsylvania actually has one of the worst setups, unfortunately, of all the states in the country. And if you add on top of that the fact that Pennsylvania is often a swing state in important elections, it really is a critical issue in Pennsylvania, and there will be a lawsuit. The suit has been going on for a number of years now. The trial is actually scheduled for October in Philadelphia, so I'll be testifying there. But here's an area where it really is critical for people in academia, for faculty in academia, to get involved, to actually use their expertise to help society. But if you ask yourself, well, who's going to pay for this kind of research? NSF funds a little bit of work in this area, but not really very much. And it really is not the kind of thing that you can go outside and get outside funding for. It really is sort of falls in that niche of something that's very important to do, incredibly important to do, but you don't fund it through a typical proposal where you submit a proposal to an agency and they fund it. So having access to unrestricted funds like the class of 1961 professorship is absolutely critical for bootstrapping new research and for even doing work in areas where you